Go Jump in the Pool, a Bruno and Boots story, by Gordon Korman. Chapter 14. To Sell or Not to Sell. Bruno kicked the door of room 109 with great determination. "George!" he shouted. "George, open up and let me in so I can kill you!" It was a week after the entire MacDonald Hall pool fund had been invested, and Lauralee Mining had taken a sudden alarming dip. George, impeccably dressed in suede and cashmere, opened the door. "Yes? Bruno, Melvin, you require something of me?" "The whole campus requires something of you," exclaimed Bruno. "Your head! Lauralee Mining dropped down to 65 cents. We're losing money!" "Simply a minor setback," said George calmly. "Your minor setback cost us $1,500, cried Boots in agony. "We're going to lose! We're going to lose it all! And then what will we tell the fish?" "There is silver in that mine," George assured them. "I have it from the most reputable firm of geologists in Canada. It is simply a matter of time." "You mean it's going to start going up soon?" demanded Bruno hopefully. George smiled confidently. "Trust me," he said. 3 days later, Bruno and Boots were wishing with all their hearts that they had not put their trust in George. Lauralee now stood at 58 cents per share. "We're doomed," moaned Boots dismally, unable to concentrate on his homework. "The guys will kill us, the girls will kill us, the fish will kill us. In fact, I think I'll kill myself and save them the trouble." $2,200 down the drain, mourned Bruno. "That George! Why didn't you warn me about him?" "I did warn you. You wouldn't listen. You never listen. He's a lunatic." "George still says we should hold on and we'll make our money," said Bruno. "But it sure doesn't look as if our stock is going to go up." "I say we sell," said Boots, "while we still have some money. It makes sense to try and salvage something out of this mess." "Well, I don't know," Bruno began. He glanced out the window. "Hey, what's going on outside? All the guys are out there." "They're probably gathering a mob to run us out of town," Boots predicted miserably. "Look!" exclaimed Bruno. "They've got George! We better get out there and protect him. Everybody's mad enough to kill him." "Just remember that we're culprits number 2 and 3, said Boots. "I don't want to go out there. Let George protect himself." Bruno opened the window. "Listen to that!" From across the road came the rhythmic chanting of female voices. "We love George! We love George!" Bruno and Boots exchanged a quick, confused glance before leaping out of their open window to join the crowd. They were met by a jubilant Pete Anderson. With him was Elmer Grimsdale, his neat black tie flapping in the breeze, his glasses awry. "Don't be too hard on George!" shouted Bruno over the general din. "Hard on him!" laughed Pete. "We're going to make him king!" And he ran back into the crowd, which was by this time carrying George high in the air. Bruno grabbed Elmer by his thin shoulders. "Elmer, what's going on here?" "Well, I'm not certain exactly," said Elmer, "but I believe it has something to do with some men finding a lot of silver in our mine." At that instant, Wilbur Hackenschleimer thundered up and thrust a copy of the financial page of the evening paper into Bruno's astonished face. The headline read, "Rich Vein Discovered at Lauralee Mine." Bruno threw his head back and howled with delight. Breathlessly, Boots read the article. "A half hour after the stock market closed today, it was revealed that mining operations at Lauralee Mining, Inc. have uncovered one of the richest silver deposits ever found in Canada. A company spokesman... Bruno, we're going to be rich!" Bruno was ecstatic. "I knew George would come through! He's not a crackpot, he's a genius! George! George!" He ran off toward the hero of the day. Boots followed. The mob carrying George set him down before the president and vice president of the fundraising committee. "Well, George," said Bruno, "what do you think of that?" George was as composed as ever. "I fail to understand why everyone is so surprised," he said. "I told you about all this some time ago." "Yes, but we didn't believe you," blurted Boots. Bruno clamped a hand over Boots's mouth. "He's excited. He doesn't know what he's saying. We believe! We believe!" "May I ask what is going on here?" said a quiet voice behind them. Silence fell. All eyes turned to Mr. Sturgeon, who stood a few yards away watching them. "Lights out," said the headmaster. "It's exactly 3 minutes from now. I fail to see why no one appears to respect the rules of this institution." A puzzled frown creased his forehead as the last "We love George" died away across the road. "You will return to your rooms immediately and go to bed." As the crowd began to disperse, Bruno grinned at George. "How did it feel to be part of one of our riots?" George almost grinned back. "Actually," he said, "I found that vulgar display of emotion rather exhilarating. However, I certainly hope I do not become ill from all this night's air. Very bad for my sinuses, you understand." The next day, Lorelei Mining made an enormous gain, closing at $1.04 per share. There was much jubilation at MacDonald Hall. Their stock had recovered from its slump and shot up so that the school's holdings were now worth more than $10,000. All through the week that followed, the students of MacDonald Hall waited, and as George put it, watched their hard-earned money grow and grow. Glowing reports continued to be published about the quality of the silver strike at Lorelei. The stock continued to rise. When the stock market closed on Friday, the shares were worth $1.73 each. $17,372.66, announced Elmer Grimsdale excitedly. That's a fortune! You know, said Boots, maybe we should sell out. How high can it go? You may have a point there, said Bruno to George. We didn't make nearly as much money on Thursday and Friday as we did at the beginning of the week. Maybe it isn't going to go up anymore. When the time has come to sell, George said calmly, I shall tell you. Trust me. The next day, the financial papers published further reports on Lorelei Mining. Not only was the silver of high quality, but the find was apparently extensive. 2 minor veins had been uncovered. By the time the stock market closed, Lorelei Mining was worth $2.02 per share. Sell! Boots begged. For pity's sake, let's sell! We have over $20,000! But you require 25, said George, and you will have it. You must be patient. These things don't happen overnight. At the end of the week, the discovery of yet another silver vein nudged Lorelei Mining up to $2.57 per share. A half-demented Pete Anderson delivered the news at lunch on Friday. We did it! He screamed, waving a newspaper in the air. We broke 25,000! Pandemonium broke loose in the dining hall. Napkins flew through the air, and boys began running around congratulating each other wildly. Elmer Grimsdale was so happy he burst into tears. Wilbur Hackenschleimer, for the first time in his life, was too overcome to eat. Chris Talbot ran around the dining hall, pounding people on the back and gibbering incoherently. Mark Davies, puffed up with pride, strutted around as though he himself were responsible for the great accomplishment. Sidney Rampolsky overturned his chair and whacked his head on the edge of the table, knocking himself unconscious. Boots just sat and savored the taste of victory. Bruno's voice was the loudest. That's it! He screamed. We did it! We've got more than enough! Sell! 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 What about an adjoining sauna? Asked George calmly. And our pool should be bigger and better than York Academy's. They are so vulgar. And he would not sell. MacDonald Hall held on. All through the next 2 weeks, the financial papers published reports on the phenomenon that was Lorelei Mining. Seldom had a stock gained so much in so short a time. Mining operations were not only fairly inexpensive, but extremely profitable as well. And yet another sizable vein of silver had been discovered. When Lorelei closed at $3.21 per share, Bruno Walton was no longer in a selling mood. After the pool, he was telling everybody, we can build a planetarium, renovate the dormitories, set up a broadcasting studio, and maybe build a museum. Why, we'll buy York Academy and throw all the turkeys out. George Wexford Smythe III said one word. Sell. Bruno was aghast. What do you mean, sell? We've only been in this for a few weeks. Now we can start to make some real money. My inside information says that there is one enormous vein, one rather sizable vein, and 3 smaller ones, said George. The stock should be peaking just about now. It will level off and then slowly begin to decline until it reaches a normal level for a stock of this nature. Tomorrow I shall call my broker. We sell. The next morning, George telephoned his stockbroker, who liquidated the MacDonald Hall holdings for a grand total of $32,234.82, and dispatched a courier to deliver the check to his young clients. True to George's prediction, Lorelei's next gain was extremely insignificant. The stock indeed appeared to be leveling off. You were right, said Bruno. We sold out at the right time. Naturally, said George, fanning himself with the check. You know something, George, remarked Boots. You're not such a creep after all. Indeed, smiled George sincerely. You two are not quite so disgusting as I had originally thought either. Still a little vulgar, mind you. Dear son, read Boots aloud from the letter he had just received from his mother. I have this vague feeling that you are worried about being taken out of MacDonald Hall and sent to a school with a more extensive athletic program. Your father and I have discussed this, and have decided that we'd rather have you happy than an Olympic athlete. We are also very pleased that you seem to be getting so much joy out of your classes lately. We love hearing from you twice a day. Keep it up. Love, Mom. No gobble gobble? Bruno questioned. Boots nodded hysterically. I can stay! I can stay! I can stay! Everyone can stay, said Bruno with great satisfaction.